Good day, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our live stream. My name is Jody Minnis. I am the gallery manager of TERN Gallery, and we will be speaking with the artists that are currently exhibiting in our current exhibition, Stick It. Stick It is a collage-based exhibition featuring 4 artists, Cydne Coleby, Gherdai Hassell, Steven Schmid, and Ronald Cyrille, and we will let them in shortly. So thank you guys once again. And yeah, gonna add them in. Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
It's so good to see all of you in one place.
Yeah.
I've been looking at your work all month.
It's so nice to be here with you guys.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah, this is awesome. I know that all of you haven't met. I know you've done some things together, but you've never met physically before. I know Steven and Cydne go, but if you want to just go around, starting with whoever, this is going to be as informal as possible. And just introduce yourself briefly, just say your name, your pronouns would be also great, and just where you're located right now.
Okay, maybe I'll go first. Hi, everybody. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. And it's such a pleasure to be here with the other artists. And thank you so much, Jody, for having us today. And also in this exhibition, such a pleasure. My name is Gherdai Hassell, and I am a Bermudian artist based in Manchester, UK. And I must say that, pardon the loud wind and the rain outside, it's been going crazy outside my window. So if you hear some creaking and stuff, it's the bad weather. But yeah, based in Manchester.
Hi, everyone. I am Cydne Jasmine Coleby. You could just call me Cydne. I am a mixed media artist based in Nassau, or Nassau, the Bahamas. And that is where I am right now.
Hey, everyone. My name is Steven Schmid. Thanks for having me here, and it's great to see all the artists finally in person. Yeah, I'm a Bahamian interdisciplinary artist, and I'm currently living and working in Toronto. Yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, I am Ronald Cyrille. I live and work in Guadeloupe, French Caribbean. So I'm an artist who also do street art and use many other techniques. So that's it.
Oh, thanks, everyone. So we'll jump right in. Like I said, this is going to be, I would just like us all taking off my gallery manager hat, putting on my artist hat, to be in conversation. But I just wanted to start with some prompts. And the first prompt would be, how did collage come into your practice? And whoever wants to take a shot at that first.
Well, I mean, for me, first of all, it was like a kind of way to bring different pieces together. So it was like a kind of, I can say that, a kind of challenge. And in the idea of things like ready-made, or I could pick up things even when I travel in, or motif I love, and how could I introduce them, or put them in my work and make them come piece of my work, even if I didn't meet them. So it was like a kind of game for me finally. And then the college was like also a technique, because I doing a lot of painting, and it was like what I like in the college is the street form. I mean, when I painting, it have the form, it have the background. Sometimes it's even noisy, and the collage bring a work like that look like I can say that like less is more. I would just say like in the collage for me, less is more, and that is how I became in. I start the collage, and then the thing with the collage is like is always like a kind of question, and then another week will be a kind of answer. So you never know where you're going, and it's just like following the flow. So that is how it starts, and then I start to process. And also doing painting for me, I need a lot of spaces, and the college is something that more like intimate. I can like uh, be in a kind of conversation with it, and it's really different for me.
Thank you for that, Ronald. For me, I would say I started using collage actually in college. I looked through some of my old works, albeit terrible, but I started then. I always had this fascination with pulling apart different parts of the body. So whether it be that I did some illustrations of individual body parts or of people and just ripping them up and putting them back together. I just always thought it was interesting to recreate the body using things that were already existing, or see like how you could fit things into like a puzzle piece when it came to the anatomy. It's just like how could you juxtapose all these different elements to create something new and something that's like unsettling but also like beautiful. So yeah.
I guess I can share. For me, I sort of like stumbled upon collage. I was in China, living there, teaching art and English, and also like working in oil painting, and found oil extremely frustrating and challenging. And I don't know, sometimes like painting like didn't necessarily come so easily for me. It always just felt like tension when approaching like a large canvas. And so I felt like I needed to move to something that I could sort of like tap into that wasn't so difficult to access. And so I just turned to collage to sort of like free up my creativity, which just sort of felt so stifled in oil painting. And I don't know, it just like totally took on a life of its own and has like completely revolutionized my entire practice. And I don't know, I think that when I moved into collage, I think that there were so many like transformative things that were happening like in my own like personal life. And collage sort of reminded me of myself and my travels and how I pull from many different experiences. And so collage then became like a metaphor for me for my life. And so I think like as I was developing as a person, collage like was developing as well. And so I've found in the medium more freedom of expression. And also like what Cydne was saying, just, you know, being able to juxtapose like maybe seemingly unrelated things and seeing how that could come together to make something new and refreshing was exciting for me when it came to collage. And yeah, I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, I totally agree with like just that idea of like juxtaposing was a very big part of the work for me. I actually didn't really consider myself a collage artist until like 2 years ago. Like, I think even though a lot of the work that I made prior, especially at COB and stuff, like I got into the collaging, like the act of collaging is almost like a necessity, mostly because whatever, I didn't have as much money and I wanted to make bigger work. So I would draw on pieces of paper and kind of cut them out and put them together. But I would never really call them collages per se, mostly because I saw the idea of collage as being like using things that are already available and reconfiguring them to a certain degree. But I was more so like creating paintings in different parts and kind of associating, creating the pieces like that. But it wasn't until like more recently that I started considering myself a collage artist, mostly because I started to look back on a lot of failed works over the years and trying to figure out like what in the world I could do with them. Yeah, and that's how I kind of really got into it, especially, and I think like the digital format has really like opened that door for me of really looking at all of the possible works I've made, everything around me, and trying to compile them together into sort of assemblage in a way. So.
Thank you for that. Thank you all. I think it's so interesting how you come to it for different places. So I like have an affinity with Steven in regards to like looking back at things and wondering how to like introduce different aspects from the past into the work, but then also what Gherdai was saying about collage being a metaphor for life. So just like moving through, and as like things like come to you, like you like navigate it in that way. So, but I also like what Ronald said about like less is more. And I think when you like look at the work that's in the show, you really get like that minimal like aesthetic and like movement from him, which is very different from his paintings. And Cydne, you talking about like just like pulling something apart to reassemble it. And I think that like segues me into my next prompt really well. About art history, because I think of art history as this constant challenging of the thing that was done before it. And I love, my favorite period of art history is the Dada movement, and I love like the photo montages and the like photo-based collages that happen in that movement. So my next prompt or question would be, is there a specific art historical period that you draw from for your work? Whether it's like the Renaissance period or Baroque period? Yeah, just want to know.
I can share. I would say that I agree with you, Jody. I definitely felt an affinity for the Dada period, just because, I don't know, it sort of like took things that were already existing in the world and repurposed them and gave them new meaning. And so we find during that period, like not just photo montage and collage, but a lot of like assemblage as well, bricolage, like different forms of collage. And I think that during that period, we see modern art sort of like take a completely different and drastic route. And I think that, you know, periods like that like sort of laid the foundation for like where we are. But I would say that one artist specifically, which I don't know if he was during the Dada period, but one artist that I have an affinity for is Ramir Bearden, who was sort of like one of the first African American artists who dibbled and dabbled in collage. His collages are absolutely incredible. He created amazing scenes of African American just daily traditional life. And I think that seeing Black people in collage was also really special for me as well. I think that there have been other artists as well who have used collage in a really interesting way. But I think that seeing him use it like for the first time within our community was really special for me.
Maybe I feel like we're going like in a sequence of like Gherdai and Cydne, then Ronald and Steven. So I don't know if y'all want to keep that going.
I mean, I was about to go, but we could switch it up.
Up to y'all.
I mean, I don't. Yes, also yes, that a lot. But also Henry Matisse. I love Henry Matisse. As I was saying, for the simplicity of the college, so it's really like just forget in the background, and even the way he choose the color, the blue, so the print, the blue, and so for me is really, I wouldn't say a whole movement, even if I know about the movement, but it's really particular that artist and not really his work, but the technique, the way he use it. And then me, I have my vocabulary. So is how could I use that technique in 2021 and what I'm going to do with it. So it's not like just watching what that done already, but still okay, say that done. I love this, and how can I bring part of this in my work, but in a different way? So it's always like, yes, never forget the past, but still moving forward. So that is it.
For me, I'll be honest. I can't say that I pinpoint a specific point in art history, but for me, it's more of a examination of social and like somewhat cultural history. It's something about the ways in which members of the African diaspora, like when you're forced displacement, like you take elements of your culture that you can hold on to and elements of like what you have there, like this new environment, this new place, these new resources. And it's just like, how could I recreate and mismatch or reconstruct what it is that I know to be familiar or see something that I can relate to? So it's like that whole idea of pulling from one element to recreate another element, which is just how culture is developed across the world. So that's like that thought process is like something that I was thinking of. And also just like here locally, like when I see how Junkanoo is like a big reference that I think a lot of people know about in my work. And it's the way that we take different materials and repurpose them or reimagine them in these very vibrant and colorful ways. So I am thinking about the ways that I see people embellishing the ordinary in everyday life for whatever reasons. It's like if you have a 95 Camry and you want to put some rims on it, like that's how I think of it more so than like saying a particular point in art history.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree. Obviously, like from ever since I started making work, like every day has been like the site of kind of exploration for me. I mean, if I had to kind of choose like a movement, I guess I remember specifically going when we went to a few of us went to the Met for the pop-up residency back in 2012, and I remember seeing Rauschenberg's Canyon. It's the kind of piece with the eagle on it, and it had like all of the different materials and stuff. And I remember just thinking like, wow, like this thing is actually worth like millions of dollars, but then it has like, you know, just buttons and, you know, just leftover scraps of stuff. And it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit in terms of thinking about how, you know, like the everyday is actually, you know, like a site of, you know, a great site of exploration and a great site of value. But I mean, for me, I draw a lot of my stuff from hip hop and rap mostly. Like, I mean, like I actually started producing kind of before I went to COB. So like that aesthetic and approach to making of like cutting and chopping samples and using things that are immediately around you and reconfiguring them in different ways, like really became like a big part of my work. And it wasn't something I didn't realize I was doing it right then and there, but it, like over the years, I kind of made the little direct references to all of these different producers, from like, you know, Kanye taking like making Otis and having just the one sample looped in a very minimal way, to someone like Jay Dilla who would kind of micro chop, you know, one sample and take all of these very small chops and reconfigure them in a way to make a brand new song. Like, I think like that has been a bigger side of exploration for me, and like why I make the work that I make now.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that, you know, nobody really referenced specifically like classical European art history. And I think that's just like a testament to like all of our backgrounds and being like Western Caribbean people and drawing from our own histories and just like defining that within that way. And I guess
and plus they always take up the space too, right? Like, you know, it's like everyone goes to Picasso and all this other stuff inside.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
like no, we don't
like
have to.
a lot of people, like if you're being honest, like, you know, like your mother and your immediate family members and the people in the community are the ones that really influence the work a lot of the times. Like, but so I think we should also like kind of give voice to those sort of things that kind of go overlooked a lot of the time. So
Yeah, I agree wholeheartly. And I think that's why I like the data period the most, because it just was like anarchy.
yeah,
Like anything goes, like forget your rules. There are no rules within the rules, and the rules I make are no rules. So yeah, thank you for that. And this question or prompt about, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and as an artist myself, as an artist and as an art dealer in a way, works on paper are specifically like valued in a way that in this like hierarchy to painting. So like painting is the top of the hierarchy, and anything else is subsequent to painting. And then the only thing that probably equals painting is like a marble sculpture or something that's like hyper realistic and shows so much work in that kind of sense. So I wonder in this way where, you know, works of paper are seen as like studies or sketches for like paintings or other works of art, is there a way in which you plan or start your collages? Because I know that I'm gonna steal Cydne's answer, but I know that Cydne starts, you know, with digital collages, and then she like makes them into a more like textural works of art. Is that process the same for any one of you? And I may, like, when you guys are talking, I may share some of the work as well. So if you see us like fiddling around in the background, that's because we want to show people what y'all is do.
Yeah. So just to like add on to what Jody said, like, yes, my process starts off digitally, and that's because I have a history in being a graphic designer for a few years, about 8 years or so. So that's the language that I'm most comfortable like working with initially. So I start off with everything digitally, like figuring out my colors and my textures, and then I translate it into something physical and tactile. So what's on the screen now is an example of a sketch, actually. But I never like I understand the hierarchy, like what Jody is talking about, of painting being up here and then sculpture like being like just under it. And I feel like that has done like such a disservice to a lot of artists, because they would put their value and their worth in like this capacity. It's just like, oh, if I can't do oil paint, I'm not a real artist. And it feels very, very much gatekeepery. Sorry for my lack of a better word. On what I see to be a form of communication that transcends language. Like, if you can create art in any way, shape, or form, like, do it. So I don't see collage as this preliminary. I mean, I see how it could be seen that way, but I personally don't see it as anything less than. It's just the medium that best articulated what that artist was trying to say. So this my process. I start off digitally. I make it tactile because I like tactile things, but I don't see it as any less than or anybody else's.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess I can add to that. I would say that for me, I totally understand what you're saying in terms of like the ways in which I think historically artworks are viewed in like this hierarchical sort of like pyramid, like what's at the top and then going down, like what's a sketch. And I think that that was something that I really subscribed to before, when I hadn't like really gone to art school or anything like that. I was just sort of like self-taught, and I think I had like this internalized European view of an oil painting being like the best thing ever. And it wasn't until like I traveled and then I started looking back at like my own culture and the ways in which I can sort of like investigate the archive and look at my own histories and look at my own like personal history and incorporate that into the work, that I sort of like did away completely with what that means. And what Cydne was saying about it being like gatekeepery, I totally agree with that. And it's funny because I think we had even had a discussion, you know, when we were like pricing the works that are on view right now. It's like in comparison, like with the larger works that I have. So even that's a thing, like scale plays a factor. And, you know, is something a sketch or is it a painting? And so I think that it's just sort of like, it's up to us.
The canvas versus paper thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's, you know, up to us to determine like, no, like this is the work and I chose this scale for a particular reason, or I chose this medium because this is the best way that this communicated the way that I was feeling or what I wanted to express. And that's like no less of value to something else that might be around, you know? And I think that that is like reclaiming a narrative for ourselves as artists. And it's something that I really believe in with the work. In terms of the ways in which I approach my work, I usually start off completely blank. Initially, when I first started working in collage, I used to use like a lot of magazines. And that was the way that I sort of began sort of like using pieces of clothing, eyes that I would find in magazines. And now the works have just sort of like evolved. And I really love the idea of a search. And so I like looking for things that don't necessarily match, or if I place this next to this, like what could that look like? How could certain colors that I use accentuate what it is that I'm trying to communicate? My works are an exploration of myself as a Black Caribbean Bermudian woman navigating in this world. An exploration of self as an exploration of materials. And so I'm excited about textures and different kinds of media that may not necessarily be viewed as like fine art. I really love breaking down these walls, like when it comes to like fine art and craft, especially now. I think it's like exploding everywhere. Like people are breaking down these like gatekeeper types of things and hierarchies. And so yeah, I sort of like approach my work as sort of in an explorative sort of way, like looking for things that really resonate with me, and how can I pull from this and pull from that to bring it all together to create something new.
Awesome. I think the next person is Ronald. Do you wanna share?
Yeah, well, for me, it's like a kind of storyboard with the animals we can see. So it's different animals we can find in the Caribbean. So also like the long moth is inspired by the stray dogs. So at the same time, sometimes it can be bird. So it can be a bird, it can be a dog, it can be a fish. So it's really how I using element of the area of the Caribbean to figure them and put them in, I'll say, in a position that will remind us ourselves. So also for my part, me I study. I make the choice to study in Martinique. That is one of the is the only Caribbean school I would say we have in the area. So it's in Martinique. We do have art school in Guadeloupe. So I had a lot of reference from the Caribbean. So Wilfried Doom and Dive, a lot of them. Even my teacher, them like people like Bruno Pigeron or Ernest Boiler. So it's like straight when I start school. Not to say that they always show us the European references, but it was like, okay, if you make the choice to come and study in Martinique, is like you already make a decision, so you need to go further and question yourself why. And then it's like in that process, it was like a kind of way for me to find my own self, because I born from my mother from Dominica and my father from Guadeloupe. So it's like I born in Guadeloupe. At the same time, I grew in Dominica, then come back in Guadeloupe. So it was like the college finally is like is me. How could I put my different pieces, different part of me together and
Yeah.
become one? So that is it. So it's like it's always these same faces, same figure in different situation. So I'll just say that about it. And also, I'll say I love the pop color because I like strong colors. So that is it. And why I do in the college because I do in also street art, sculpture, and many different things. But I like the college because first of all, it go fast. Because I like to do as I start to do street art, I be accustomed with like big canvas and it's a lot of energy. You need spaces, and is I always want to put, not always because now I learn, but I did always like feeling like not enough. I need to put more. I need to put more. So like in the college is like I always trying to surprise myself, and I never really know where I go in. And like it's like each work, or I can say that matching with some with another work, like it have a kind of storyboard. And sometimes when I watch in my own life, I can see that it affiliate with some things that happened to me, or so that's it.
Yeah, that's oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Like ingesting everything and then just like move on to Steven. So do you start as, I mean, they start as other paintings, right? And then
You know what? Like, I would say like I don't necessarily sketch out anything. Like a lot of the times, I spend a long time trying to think about gesture a lot and how like the placement of what figures are doing, and I don't really sketch those out very much. Like once I kind of have a general idea, I literally might just do a stick figure or something on a post-it note. And once I see, okay, this kind of gesture is kind of cool with just some simple shapes, then I tend to kind of like go from there. It's been easier to make in terms of like the more I make, the more material I have to kind of work from. So once I kind of have a gesture, I'm able to kind of pull from other things to kind of get, some material and stuff down. But like I think a big thing for me, like I've been working digitally over the past few years, and pretty much like there was a point I wasn't painting at all. I was maybe just doing some graphite and color and pencil stuff, mostly because out of space. I didn't have the space to really paint and make a mess and that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I really got into digital painting. I'm just kind of looking at these two, and it's just something interesting I'm going to point out for me, at least from my perspective. Like the one on the right, the Rattenkonig piece was a painting that I don't know, for some reason I wanted to make a 100% digital painting, and it was like just kind of speaking on this hierarchical thing, and it was something that like after a while I was using a lot of things around, like I said, little graphite drawings and stuff, but I felt like I wasn't really like a big digital painter unless I could paint the whole thing digitally. So that one was like an exercise and just me trying to do that. But once I reached that pinnacle, I kind of realized like I was trying to figure out like why I was actually doing this particular thing. And I tried to figure out ways to bring back like materiality back to the digital space that I was doing, that I instantly missed like once I kind of gave it up. So the one on the left, Admiring the Stars series, I really began playing with almost like every form of making, like digital painting, drawing, photography, sculpture making. So like a lot of those ones in there, like I'm starting to digital paint, print it out on my little cheap printer at home. And with that, it usually comes out very messy. Like I would photograph it, bring it back into the work. I would sometimes use those prints and make 3D sculptures out of them, photograph it, bring it back into the work. I would sometimes project like video projections onto the 3D sculptures, photograph it, bring it back into the work, start using just family photographs and that sort of stuff. And that's how like I started to let go of like the pristineness of the lines and everything that I was very interested in as well. And I started letting the process show a little bit more. So the one on the left ends up showing a lot of like the layers of all of the paintings that I've been doing over the past few years. And I think even like this one and a couple from the other Admiring the Stars ones, I started pulling from, you know, works that I made like 8 years ago that never, you know, sketches and stuff like that, that I thought were just sketches, but ended up actually being pivotal, you know, pieces within a different assemblage. It just didn't find the time to be used properly, I guess. But
Yeah. Thank you.
I have questions for everybody.
The questions. I'm gonna stop sharing this, and then we'll go to.
Okay, so Gherdai, I have one question for you. Like you use magazines in your work, which I absolutely love. But I was just wondering, like on a personal level, magazines are very difficult to find. Like at least for me. And since the pandemic, I think that they've gotten even more difficult to find because
Yeah.
printing just went down. Like, how do you imagine that is going to influence your practice in the future? Like, do you still want to? You said you like to hunt, so is this still like something that you want to keep using? Are you thinking about using maybe different types of eyes and stuff like that?
That's a really great question. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the process has already shifted. When I began using collage, I was based in China and would like go to work and like walk past all these magazine stands. And I've sort of like always really been interested in fashion anyway. And so I would just collect all of these magazines. And so what was interesting was that there was this sort of thing that was happening. Like I would take the magazines home, I'd be flipping through them and like really inspired, but then still going back to paint my oil paintings. And then I found myself like on the streets in China, like people would come up to me, try to touch my hair, take pictures of me, just I guess like completely enthralled by a foreigner being there in the space. And so then I became like particularly drawn to eyes and started dreaming so much about eyes. And so that's sort of why I began like emphasizing the eyes in my collage. And when I first started, I was using Chinese eyes because those were the eyes that I was encountering not only like on the streets, but also like in the books that I was that I had access to, because that was what was there. Yeah, that was what was there. But now, like not being in China, the work has definitely evolved. Like instead of using Chinese eyes that I would find like in a magazine, like I'm now sourcing eyes like from the internet and like appropriating different images that I come across. And so interestingly, how you guys are like working in digital, I'm also now like moving away from magazines and moving into the digital space, which is just this, like vastness of opportunity to find images from everywhere. I'm dipping into the archives. And so now as the work is also like increasing in scale, I found it particularly difficult to use magazines anyway. And I am interested in the works becoming more archival. And so I am like searching for things that are like acid free and moving away from magazines, which I don't use that much in the work anymore unless it's like really small. But the work is growing in scale. And so now I'm thinking about printing, like I'm doing digital collages. I'm using like other types of materials, using fabrics and glitter and other things. So yeah, it sort of evolved. So not so much magazines anymore, although I'm like particularly inspired by like fashion magazines and poses and things like that. But now the work is definitely evolved from that for sure.
Cool. And I can see the fashion inspiration in your work. Like the women's like they be killing it. First of all, they stylish AF.
Yes, I
But
love
also,
that so much. I think like, you know, when I think about like my inner child and like I used to just sit there and draw like people in clothes all the time. Like that was what I was doing like when I was younger. So these are just like the grown-up versions of those things that I was doing as a kid.
Awesome. All right, Jody, I have more questions. Can I ask them, or did you want to segue into something else?
You're good. I just wanted to address the audience.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that we, in the next, I'd say about 5 minutes or so, we'd like to include your questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to them. But yeah, if y'all have questions, go for gold.
My next question is for Ronald. Ronald, I really, really love your work. I've been very excited to have this conversation with you. But I wanted to know, like, how much of folklore and storytelling was a part of just like your childhood growing up, is just your upbringing, and also just the culture in Guadeloupe in general. And I ask because like here in the Bahamas, like we have folklore, we have like our tales, but I feel like sadly like some of that gets lost over the generations. And looking at your work, I see so much of the mystical and the other world like in your work, like how you juxtapose these different elements. It reminds me of things like the chick charney that I'd learned about here. It's just like it's half man, half bird. And then I look at your work and I'm just like, wow, like this is just nostalgic and beautiful. And I'm happy that this part of like African culture like that was able to come across the water is like still present and like so like visible in your work. So yes, how much of folklore and storytelling did you deal with growing up?
Well, as I said, I grew in Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we didn't have so much TVs, like so much multimedia. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like we had some, I'll say, some old people telling us some stories,
Okay.
like to go in the bush, because if you go in the bush, sometimes just to keep us around the house, and so they was like making us get scared and things like that. But it's like always it was stimulating my imagination, and then when I came back to Guadeloupe, I saw like, okay, well, we have many similarities between Dominica and Guadeloupe. So it was like, it's the same story. Then I went to Martinique and study, and it was like, oh, well, all this is the same. And then Caribbean Link was a opportunity for me to discuss with, exchange with different young from the Caribbean. And I was like, but for sure. And then I was like, but why am I surprised? Because we all got the same story from Africa. So it's like, it's supposed to be natural. So it's just like the way like things going now, it's surprising because it's like with all what going on with new, like everybody have how we calling it, the phone, everybody connect. So it's like we don't so much talk to others again, and this story start to disappear. But in Guadeloupe, we have what we call the conte, is like a couples of little stories. Like people sometimes just like they can be there and just like in make a story for you right now. It wasn't not necessarily a story that was wrote somewhere. So it's like it's always bringing something new. And the thing now is when something is not right somewhere, it always have a different version. So and then in the Creole too, the Creole is also a language that bring all the Caribbean together. And in Guadeloupe, in the Creole, it is like they can say like femme la savage is like or femme la sabef, or they can use an expression of a dog like going up and down like a dog, and you look like a dog, and this. So it's like it's always most of the time in the Creole we use the animals, and the animals got some humans position. So it's just like I want to say I just reproducing these things, but it's like it talks to me, and it's a kind of way to keep this alive. And to say the truth, I really happy to see today, yes, my work getting to cross the sea, because at the beginning a lot of people was like a kind of way fighting the week, because it was like it was too strange for them sometimes, or it was like reminding them too much of us, of who we are, until I keep doing it, because I start like, because I start by doing cartoon, and then I was fed up with cartoon because it wasn't saying nothing about me and my identity. And then finally I start looking about me and do kind of introspections, and until I get something, and I keep going. but it's like I get a lot of chance. I get more chance to stop it than to keep going. So this is why I'm happy to be part of this exhibition. And this is how finally this kind of flicker faces get popular, because I was doing it in street art. So it's never, I join a lot, but when I work in, I never do like join before and then pass back on it. No, it's always street draw. For me, it do have like, oh, this is a painting, this is this is no, everything. To say the truth, I even more like a drawing than sometimes a painting, because the drawing is a direct message between my brain and my hand. So it do have like too much. I need to put color for it to look good. On, it's really so. To finish on this is how I just like keep going. And from the stray dog, that was like a kind of way to talk about vagabondage, because as I was born in Guadeloupe from a Guadeloupean father and a mother from Dominica, then my mother, then I was in Dominica with my grandparents. And so in Dominica, I was a Frenchman. In Guadeloupe, I was a Dominic. So it was like, okay, I was like feeling a kind of way like that dog in a kind of way. So going up and down. So it was like a kind of metaphor. And finally, it became a kind of metaphor of our society, or we all like everybody going up and down and everybody looking for a position. And this is why the dog became bird, became fish and different animals.
Thank you so much. I love
Thank
that answer.
That was very generous. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I do have one last question. This
Gone.
one is for Steven. So Steven, as we've said to the people here, like we've known each other for a while. We went to college together. And the entire time that I've known Steven, y'all, like his work has been very expansive. It's been very involved. Like Steven is for years been one to like layer and come back, build and come back, like just take a lot of time, like expanding and developing the work. There's a lot of labor that goes into Steven's work, like whether it be physical or digital. And I know that you said that you were getting over that perception that digital work wasn't on the same level as physical work, but I wanted to know, like, and you've gotten over it and like you challenged yourself and made just like fully digital work. But there's a lot of like making things in the digital realm is limitless. Like the possibilities and how expansive that could get is limitless. And for me, I wanted to know like how do you envision pushing material in a limitless space, if that makes sense? Or yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah,
If I
yeah,
pick
that
out
makes
a
sense. That makes sense.
okay.
You know what? I think like a big part of my work, like especially when I transitioned from painting into digital, and it was literally because I didn't have the space to paint or the money to say to buy paint and that sort of stuff. So one of the things that I wanted to do digitally when I started digitally painting, was how can I translate my way of physically painting into this digital realm. So I would actually look at older paintings and then replicate some of the stuff and try to be like, okay, like this mark here from this type of graphite held this way, I can kind of simulate it doing this and that. I don't know. I think it has been a journey for sure. And I really been thinking about like myself as a Bahamian living in Canada, and this kind of like not necessarily having like a home space, and having this sort of this idea of like your identity being constantly shifting back and forth between those different spaces. Like I really delved into the medium of jumping back and forth between that digital physical space to kind of work out those ideas. But I think like just kind of choosing a particular, everything that I do, I've been running through this one particular app, Procreate, which is like, it's only like $10 and it's probably like the best app in the entire world, but I think like by filtering, by staying true to my painting practice that I've had years before, and filtering everything like through this one sort of app, and using and getting to know everything about this one app, like I've been able to create a language, I think, that is very personal to me. I think that's just how I've been approaching the work over the past few years.
Cool. Thank you. Sorry to have so many questions, guys, but I wanted to know.
You gotta know.
Take some pressure off of me. I appreciate it.
Jody, what up now?
I think we have about 10 minutes left in case anybody in the audience has a question. There are no silly questions. So, that's my teachers in school would say to me, but also not say to me because they would say that there are silly questions. If you have a question, please feel free to ask. And I guess I'll lead with my another prompt. Because I think we spoke about at length how you all see collage as a transferable principle. Mm-hmm. So I won't ask that one, but I will ask about, and Gherdai talked about it a little bit when she spoke about transitioning from magazines and thinking about acid-free paper and so on. Due to like the ephemerality of materials like paper, because I've seen some really beautiful paintings, like oil paintings, and they're like behind glass and they're just like gorgeous. And then when you take them out of the frame, you're like, oh, Nelly, like this color is not consistent. Or you like look at drawings and you take it out of the frame and like, ooh, the lizards had a lot of fun. But do you consider the longevity and the archival qualities of your work? Because I know that there are some artists who use that to their advantage. Like they know that the paint is going to deteriorate, so they have a hidden element in the work. I think it's Titus Kafar who does that in his work. But that's my question.
Yeah. I mean, I can go. I mean, it's something that I've personally struggled with for a while. I would say pretty much all the work that I've made from maybe late 2013 up until now, maybe has been very like ephemeral installations. And this is kind of like the first set of work that I was putting in a frame. And like, I don't know, like it was just it was very odd for me to kind of do that because I always considered my work to be made within a particular space, and I always wanted to represent that particular space as much as I can. And I found that by doing installation work and large scale work, I was able to do that. But I really considered it with these types of works here, and really also thinking about like, I remember like when I first got a job, like I was working with a guy and he basically told me like, like when you're kind of like making work and stuff like that, you just gotta do what you gotta do. So I think like, I'm trying to figure out like how best to answer this, because it's something I've just been kind of really confused about in terms of, not confused, but like really been thinking a lot about in terms of my practice and having a parallel of different physical works that last beyond me, because it's something, like a lot of people want to exist beyond themselves, like, after death, they want to have something here to last longer than them. But then at the same time, I'm also for like, just, existing. And that idea of like, especially in a digital world, this idea of like the right to be forgotten and just being present. So yeah, I've been kind of jumping back and forth between them, but I've been finding ways to kind of have both of those things in parallel. So
nice. That was really poetic as well. So thank you for that. Anybody else wants to tackle that before we move on to a question that was given in the chat?
Not really, but I mean,
you don't have to if you don't want to. It's all right.
that was a big deal for me at the beginning, but we can also sell a moment in art. So it's like things do always need to be staying after death. It can just be the present. So I'm trying to to change my way of thinking about it, and it's a process. But it's true that always feeling like uh, even the work, each week is a moment for you, and you doesn't want it to last, or you want it to like stay forever, or the person who have it like uh, you know. So it's like it's a real challenge. It's a real
Yeah.
challenge.
Understood. So this question by Lisa Howie. Lisa from Black Pony Gallery in Bermuda. Lisa asks, "What's next for everyone?"
Oh.
Big things, right?
Well, for me, I have a residency that I'm doing next month. So that's exciting. I leave for New York on Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll be a part of the March and April cohort at the Wasaic Project in Wasaic, New York. And then just a shout out TERN. In May, I'll be going with TERN to Future Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, I'm not gonna speak up, but we moving the train over here.
All right. Going and flowing. Nice.
I
Steven,
can
you
share.
graduating soon?
Go ahead, Steven.
Yeah, I mean that's literally me for the next couple months. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm currently doing my master's degree in studio art and at OCAD University in Toronto. So this is my last semester. Yeah, so like beyond the next 2 months, like it's just like tunnel vision right now, just trying to finish the exhibition part of my work and then also the thesis paper, which is kind of like a very extensive document to go alongside it. So yeah, that's me until April, mid-April ish, April, May, I would say, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Gherdai, sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. It's so funny. I feel like I share similar things between Cydne and Steven. So I'm also in a graduate program at the moment at the China Academy of Art and in the final semester of my thesis as well. So I understand your pain, Steven. Like literally like this close to finishing and so ready. So definitely. Same like Cydne, I also have a residency next month. Leaving also next week as well. I'm heading to the US in Georgia and going to the Hambridge Center. I'll be there for 2 weeks. And then right after that, I will be traveling to Cuba, traveling with Black Pony Gallery to do the Havana Biennial, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, it's super exciting and many other things for the rest of the year. But looking forward to these events like coming up in the next couple weeks.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. And Ronald, with your studio renovations finishing up and all that.
Well, me, I been working on my studio. I supposed to have a little showroom too, because to say the truth, a couple of months ago, my studio burned down and I lost all my work, everything. So right now I'm in process to catch back myself. So I'm really happy about it. I probably need just probably 10 days again. So I'll be able to show my work and everything. So yeah, that is a good energy right now. And also I have a couple of like connections on what I'm working on also in this. We're talking about it, so I will not put it out before everything sure. But yeah, I mean, I keep working and yeah, some nice things supposed to come.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much. And thank you specifically to all of you artists for entrusting us with your work. I really appreciate it. The show looks really, really good. And I'm totally biased, and that's okay. But, you know, it looks really
okay.
yeah. So thank you once again. And if you haven't been able to physically see the show and you live in New Providence, we are open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 10 to 6. If you need a location or anything to be dropped, because you can find the Island House, that's all right. You could send us an email and we'll send it to you. If you are not located in the Bahamas and you still want to see a preview of the works, we can email you that to your home as well. On behalf of Amanda and Lauren and Ramel, who has been helping me secretly on the side, thank you all for coming, and I will now end this broadcast. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See you all.
Thank you.
I want the outro music.
Yeah,
You don't.
bro.